In the end, everything will be carved in stone.
Hi, my name is Nyesha Stone, and for the first time ever for Carvd Stone Incorporated, my media company, we're doing a video interview, and we're so happy to welcome Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be the first guest on your show. I'm excited for you.
Cool, thank you so much. So I want this interview to be a little bit different than what you've done before, so I'm going to leave the politician at home.
Let's do it.
And I want Mandela Barnes, so the man from Milwaukee. So just let's switch it up a little bit. Have you ever heard of the game cans?
The game, of course I heard of game cans.
So explain the game cans to people.
Well, first you gotta get your cans. Two, you crush the can, put it up. One person has a can in front of them. You get a basketball and you try to hit the cans. You get points. Whoever has the most points wins.
So going off
It's a neighborhood classic.
It is a neighborhood classic. So going off of that, what did you used to do in your childhood for fun in the city?
Oh man, a lot of stuff. I spent a lot of time on my bike. I rode my bike a lot. Could have done that for a whole day if you let me. Play cans every now and then, but I was on my bike a whole lot.
And then aren't you an alumni from King, right? No? Am I wrong?
No.
Oh, I'm wrong.
My dad went to King. I went to Marshall.
You went to Marshall?
I went to Marshall.
How was your experience at Marshall?
It was great. I loved it. Marshall was it was a microcosm of the city, in the good ways and some of the not as good ways. And I think that's what prepared me for the field that I'm in right now, because I got to experience so much. I had really great teachers. A lot of my friends I still have from Marshall. It was I played sports. And it was good. I mean, it was for better and for worse. I enjoyed it. Wouldn't do it any other way.
And so, being a black man from Milwaukee, could you explain just a little bit about your experience, or even how did you see yourself being in the position that you are in, and then how would you say that you've kind of made it out the city, because it is hard being a black man in Milwaukee?
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't say that I necessarily saw myself as Lieutenant Governor. As I told you earlier, I studied broadcast journalism. I wanted to be in your seat. So it's funny how life works. But with that being said, it wasn't until I got older, I was in college, that I realized that something like this was possible. And I try to tell all the kids all the time when I visit a lot of schools, especially when I'm in high schools, I'm like, just go out there and do it. Like, the only thing stop you from, the only thing getting in the way of your vision, only thing in your way is yourself. And I get it, times are tough, things can be really, really difficult, but don't be afraid to ask for help either if you need it. And I think what stops a lot of people is not seeing themselves in a certain position. Because it makes it that much harder for you to chase that dream if you can't even see yourself in that place. But I was able to see myself in some sort of position, and that's why I ran for state representative back in 2012. I knew it was something that was possible. We had a number of number of African Americans who were in the state assembly, and I decided to chase that. And then I looked even further. I mean, like, I always talk Barack Obama. He just changed it.
Everybody
like when I was in college, I saw him running for president. I was like, oh, well, that made so much more possible. I was able to see so much more. And I think that was one of the differences for me. I mean, I left for college. I went to Alabama A&M University, and I came back once I finished school. For people that do leave Milwaukee for college, I try to encourage them to come back, because the city needs you.
And then just going off the topic of media and visuals, I know as a journalist, being in Milwaukee, we specifically cover things a certain way, especially in the black community. So how do you think the media portray, or in what ways do you think the media should change how they portray our city?
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from perspective. Like, even if you look at politics, you look at media, you look at business, a lot of the choices that are made in each of those three areas, there aren't many people that always reflect the diversity of a city like Milwaukee at the table to make those decisions. So sometimes it's not always ill intent. It's just not having perspectives represented that should be at the table. If you're going to cover a certain demographic, you should have that demographic also represented at the decision-making table about how they're going to be covered when there are business decisions that are being made. And you're going to operate your business in the community. You should have people that reflect that community, a part of that business, a part of the decision-making table that guides the course of the business decisions. In the same way with politics, that's why it's important to have racial diversity, gender diversity, cultural diversity, because you are making decisions through governing, through legislation that will impact those communities without knowing how or what the result will be as a result, or what the result will be after legislation XYZ is signed into law.
This is kind of a political question, but don't answer it like a politician. So like, what do you really want to accomplish with your position? Like, what do you really want to do? If there's like one thing you could change, or just like one impact or one image you could leave, like what is it?
Yeah, like you said, as somebody born and raised in the city of Milwaukee, obviously, I want Milwaukee to be one of those cities that people think about. Milwaukee is the most known unknown. A lot of people, that's why I wore my DNC convention quarter zip, because I want the DNC to come to Milwaukee. I want more people to know what we have to offer. I want Milwaukee to be a place where you can go anywhere. And I want that for the whole state too, which is why I ran for statewide office. But knowing how decisions at the state level impact the city of Milwaukee, and knowing the benefit that the city has for the entire state, this is about all of us moving forward.
So what do you think people should know about the city? Because there are so many negative things that are discussed about the city.
Yeah.
But if like to somebody that's really never even heard of the city, what would you say about them to like convince them to come here? Especially not even just about downtown East Side, but like specifically, where the Black community lives. Because no one really discusses, the North Side, the West Side. Right.
We do have a lot to offer. I mean, we're a city of festivals. I mean, you look at, even like you said, specifically the Black community, we Juneteenth celebration. You look at Garfield Days. You look at, what was African World Festival, and it was African Arts Festival last year. Hopefully, that is something that's even bigger this year. We do have a lot to offer, and people who do come here are very pleasantly surprised, and they talk about it, and when they get home, they tell other people about what Milwaukee has to offer as far as culture, as far as as far as experiences as well. We have a solid food culture here too.
Yeah,
we got pretty good food.
Yeah.
Our food culture is growing. We got a lot of food options in Milwaukee, and people wouldn't think of us as a foodie town, but per capita, we are definitely punching above our weight.
So, what do you want people to know about you? Not the politician, but you, like Mandela Barnes, because I know with the media, there's always a lens. There's always another third person, but like we right here. So like
we right here.
So what do you want people to really like know about you?
Yeah, I still feel like I'm the same person with or without the title. I sit up here and talk to y'all about Marvel movies and how yes, Thanos was wrong. However, but when it comes to things I enjoy, I still hang out with my friends. Not as much because the time just isn't there. But the experiences, the things that I did beforehand, I try to still keep. I still try to do a lot of the same things because I don't want to forget who I am. And I see a lot of people, unintentionally see some form of success, whether it's elected office or whether it's in the private sector, where they start to make money, or became doctors, became lawyers, and they're not the same person, for better or for worse. You're going to change, you're going to grow, you're going to evolve as a person. But I've seen people lose sense of who they truly are. So on February 22nd, I'm going to be at the Travis Scott concert with my friends. Stuff like that is not going to change.
So you like going to concerts, Travis Scott. So who are some of your favorite artists to listen to?
Ooh, that's a good one. I listen to so much, like a lot of different music, different genres. Favorite rappers, Nas, but like right now, like obviously going to Travis Scott concert. Let me top 3 rap albums last year: Travis Scott, Pusha T.
You're gonna catch a lot.
I won't catch a lot. Drake lost. And it should be made very clear. No offense.
What makes why Pusha T over Drake?
Why? Pusha T just came a lot harder, and he ripped a mask off of Drake.
Well, just staying on topic of hip hop, period.
Yeah.
What should people know about hip hop? Because I know like it gets a lot of controversy, but like I feel like unless you in the black community, kind of like you really
That's
don't
what I'm saying.
understand
So,
like what it means.
I'm telling you, I remember on Twitter about a month ago, or maybe even 2 months ago, there was an article written that said, at age 32, Mandela Barnes becomes lieutenant governor, and I quote tweeted and said, I blame rap music, because people always say I blame rap music for the negative, and that's all I listened to growing up is rap music, and some other stuff as well. Like I'm all over the place with the music I listen to. If you went through my iTunes library, you'd be quite shocked. But rap is what I listen to primarily, and whether it's the storytelling, whether it's the creativity, or whether it's just the music in general, it puts me in a certain space, and I think about the world, in a much different way, and everybody's not gonna get it, and I understand that, but it's a new generation. It's a new generation of people who are stepping up, who have never had a voice before. And I think that's what rap music represents completely. It's a different perspective. When you look at hip hop first came into existence, it was about bringing lived experiences that were not often in audio recordings. And it became mainstream, and it became something else that we could have never imagined. It's so ingrained in the mainstream now, where it's kind of sickening to some degree. But I think that I think that's like indicative of what I want to do, even in elected office, just to make sure that that different perspective is there.
That's crazy because I always say that I want to live like a rapper's life, but as a journalist.
Yeah.
So
But and it's a space for that too. It's a space for that, especially as media evolves. You have your like right now, you have your own outlet, and you can tell your story the way you want to tell it. You don't have to wait for somebody else to give you the green light, to give you the okay. And it's not always easiest that way, but you still get to maintain your independence. You get to do it as you want to do it. Carve it in stone.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So, have you ever heard this Milwaukee saying on what?
Oh, I still say on what.
Okay.
I say on what in my office.
So, explain it.
On what? I had to explain that when I was in school in Alabama. The first time I said it in school, I was like, they was like, oh man, a class supposed to be canceled. We'll use that as an example. They supposed to cancel class. I'm like, on what? What do you mean? On the calendar? I'm like, what you mean on the calendar? I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, on what? That's just, how serious are you? How serious are you about this? That's what on what means.
That is great. That was great. Because I saw somebody make a status about it, and it just went viral because
seriously, I wish I could have been a part of that. It is very hard to explain it, but yeah, it is very hard to explain. You are absolutely correct.
There is one political topic I want to talk to you about. These potholes. What do you and Tony Evers plan on doing about these potholes?
So, you know what? I'm not being a politician here trying to pass the buck, but potholes on the city streets are city issue.
See, good thing, because I'm working on an article about that.
Yep,
So,
you got the city issue now. There are some on the highways. There are issues. There are state highways. That's just a lack of road funding.
So each city has to do with their.
Municipalities, however, our highways are in decay, and that's been through a series through years of neglect and not coming up with an equitable funding solution, and that's why the governor put together a commission, a task force, bipartisan, to come up with the best solution to fund our roads. However, in the city, we do have some real issues with the roads, and it's expensive. And I will say, like, one thing too, we do have to deal with the reality of the weather here, because when it snows, when the salt is on the road, the crevices go in, or the crevices are created, I should say. If the snow melts, the water goes in there, and then it freezes again overnight. It expands, messes up the roads. It's terrible. So we do have unique issues with our roads, but it is a city issue for the city streets.
Going back to you being from Milwaukee, how have you been using your experience growing up in the city to help you with your current position? Yeah,
so a lot of decisions get made about the youth. A lot of decisions get made about the city of Milwaukee, especially when you look at criminal justice issues or education issues. And, most often, the majority of people who are making those decisions, I'm going back to when I was in the legislature now, more often than not, the people making the decisions, the overwhelming majority of them haven't really experienced the life that they are making a decision about, that they're legislating. Most of them have never ever lived in poverty. Most of them don't even know anybody who's lived in poverty, have never been on food stamps, never been on unemployment, never, faced adverse circumstances or situations or know anything about it, only know what they've read or only know what somebody told them. And that's just not enough. It's not enough. And people are, unfairly treated or can be unfairly treated by government as a result, because nobody knows their experience who's going to have the final say. And that's a real problem.
And knowing that there are not many people like you, being a black man and having the experience that you do, there are those times when you're faced scrutiny or stigma or whatever it may be. What keeps you going? Like, how do you keep that, that face on, like not acting out, being that angry black person?
A lot of it is the children, the kids. Like I said, I do a lot of school visits, and I look back when I was younger, when I was in middle school, elementary school. Not always having the most positive role models in front of me. There are a handful, but like when I get to walk into a classroom or even talk to people who are older than me sometimes, who are like, oh man, we appreciate, what's going on, appreciate what you're doing, we appreciate seeing you there. So knowing I have a responsibility to the next generation that's coming up, the little kids in a classroom where there may be the next mayor, where there may be the next governor, the next U.S. senator, the next member of Congress, like very conscious of that. And I know that, it is way bigger than me, way bigger than anything that I alone could ever do. And knowing that, they sometimes need somebody to look up to, where that is my thought process.
So just staying on the topic of youth, what can we do as a community to help fight against the issues that, the youth are facing, specifically in Milwaukee?
Get involved. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Make your voice heard. And, it's easy to say go vote. Sure. Yes, you should. I'm not rolling my eyes at that, because you should go vote. But voting is only the first step. Like, people in elected office can only get away with what you let them. A lot of the poor decision making that happens takes place only because people don't always know what's going on, or people don't realize what's happening. And I get it. People have lives and people are very busy, so it's tough. It can be difficult to stay on top of things or pay attention to everything that's going on in government. But, voice your displeasure about bad decision making. If it's an issue about gun violence, if it's an issue about, about healthcare, about schools, about roads, like talk about those, contact your legislators.
What about those people who for one, they don't know where to go. They don't think they have the power to speak up, or they don't have the confidence, or, they just feel like, oh, somebody else is going to do it. What would you tell, those individuals? But
that's like anything else in life. You can't rely on anybody else to do something. I assume if I have to rely on somebody else to do it, it's not going to get done. And fair enough. I get it. A lot of people do feel powerless because for so long, people have been made to believe that they're powerless, or been made to believe that their voices don't matter. But it's not anything special about me. Like there was no anointing. I don't come from a political family. I don't come from a rich family. It was knowing that my community could be better. And that's why I got started in organizing before I ran for office. It was knowing that the city could be doing so much more. It was knowing that the state could be doing so much more. So I decided to get myself involved, showing up to meetings, learning who my lawmakers were, learning who my elected officials were prior to voting for them. And, we have all the access in the world. You just go on the internet, like their websites. You just type in, find my representatives, type in your address. Everybody who represents you at every level of government is going to pop up. So that's why I encourage people to get involved. Don't ever feel like you're powerless, because you, as a citizen, have more power than you probably even realize.
And why should people care about politics and like we have a new alderman, we have a new lieutenant governor, stuff like that? Because I know, speaking to, especially to people around my age, in their 20s and stuff, they don't really pay attention. They're like, well, whoever gets elected, nothing's going to change for me. Yeah, but every aspect of a person's life is dictated by politics in one way or another. And
some things you may not realize. You know, you think about votes, especially city council. I mean, it's only 15 people. And so that means it takes 8 votes to get something passed. If one person decides that, oh, well, I don't think we should spend this money to fix the potholes, then guess what? Potholes ain't getting fixed. Or one person decides that, you know, maybe, you know, we'll look at an issue like gun violence, or even in state government especially. And you look at the narrow margin that we won by, you know, you can elect people who understand or who at least advocate for issues to push. And change doesn't happen overnight. Bad things happen overnight. But to make the positive change that we want to see, that takes a long time, unfortunately. So it's about building for the next day, for the next year, for the next generation. So having people in place who are going to carry issues like an issue, again, like gun violence, is something we unfortunately have to deal with in the city of Milwaukee. But it's a state issue because only the state can act on gun violence.
Really?
Per the state constitution, their local municipalities can't do anything. You know, whether it's universal background checks, or whether it's making sure that domestic abusers don't have access to firearms, or making sure that in you know, higher crime areas or around schools that we can use some extra enforcement. So it's about electing leaders who understand these challenges. And yes, I do feel like things should change much quicker than they do. However, it requires everybody playing their part, everybody playing a role to make that happen.
And let's go on to the topic of school. So NPS. So what should people know about NPS? Because I'm an alumni from NPS. And
Where'd you go?
King.
That's why you try to put King on me?
Yeah, because I thought you went to Riverside or King, and I wanted to have the argument, but it just didn't work out as
I was
well.
we can still have an argument.
Nobody really cared about Marshall, so
this interview is done.
But no, a lot of people talk about NPS, but I feel like we have a lot of good students that come out of it.
Man, we have so many good students that come from NPS. You can't tell me a bad thing. But like, of course, like any kind of bureaucracy is going to have problems. Any system, any government. So as a system, sure, of course. Are there some issues? Yeah, that you're going to get that anywhere. But one thing, too, that people don't discuss in the conversation about NPS is the inputs. Like, you look at the rate of homelessness. You got 1 out of 19 students are homeless in NPS. That's over 5% of the students that show up to school. You look at the rate of child poverty. You look at issues like mental health, physical health that go unaddressed. You look at the trauma that certain students are dealing with, especially if you're in a neighborhood that, you know, is dealing with a heightened level of violence. You don't know what that walk to the bus stop or what that walk from home to school is like for some of these students. It is tough. It is a challenge. And so you can't have a conversation or say that this whole system is bad when you haven't looked at the other issues, the other factors that determine what a child's success looks like, or what the success of the district may look like. When you ask, like, okay, well, what is a good school district? People are like, I don't know, Whitefish Bay. Okay, well, look at the social factors. Look at the social indicators of a Whitefish Bay. Higher income, less crime, you know, homelessness is not an issue. Homelessness is not an issue in Whitefish Bay. Access to healthcare, those are issues that most of the students aren't dealing with before they go to school.
So how do not to cut you off, but
you're fine.
How do we begin to get the teachers? Because I know like trauma informed care. Like how do we begin to attack this issue? Is it all depending on money, or
money is a big thing, and you know, of course, you can't just throw money at a problem. You have to be very intentional about the spending. You have to be very specific about the spending. That means money for nurses in schools. That means money for social workers in schools, guidance counselors, to make sure that students know or are on a path once they graduate high school, so that school can be seen as worthwhile. You know, a lot of students are like, oh, feel like they're just going to school for nothing. You know, you get a guidance counselor in there, help work with students, and help them to see a career path, a path for college, whatever the case may be, trades, or and again, back to the whole social work piece, like, because a lot of these kids are not going to get the care that they need, you know, even if their parents are, you know, Medicaid eligible. Getting a kid to a doctor's appointment that's another thing. That's a whole other task, especially when you look at parents who are working multiple jobs. You got other kids. It can be tough. Parents with no transportation. It can be hard.
So what was your upbringing like? Did you experience growing up in poverty? Did you did you come from a single
Right.
family home? Like what was your experience growing up?
Right. So fortunately, I had two hardworking parents, which
Most people don't have.
which can be seen as a luxury. Healthcare, that wasn't an issue for me. I never had to worry about where my next meal was coming from. I never had to worry about where I was going to sleep. So it didn't matter what school I went to. It was going to be okay. And Marshall didn't have a particularly high graduation rate, but it was the difference for me and a lot of my classmates was, what I was fortunate enough to go home to. And that should never dictate, a child's success. Their neighborhood, their zip code, their parents' income, that should never determine a child's outcome. Unfortunately, it does.
So just staying on that topic of the zip code. So I have a map at home of Milwaukee, and we all know Hispanic people live on the south side. The black people live on the north side. White people live in the suburbs. How do we begin to desegregate our city? Like how can we do that? I mean, I know it's not legal for us to do it, but we're the most segregated city.
We are unfortunately the most segregated city, and I'll say too though the way Milwaukee was built. All the way back to 1846, the way Milwaukee was split up, segregation has always been there, whether it was Italian neighborhoods, German neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, English neighborhoods, whatever the case was. Like people had their own areas of the city, and as migration from the south happened, as people moved up north, neighborhoods just began to switch, become occupied by people or inhabited by people of different races that just kind of filled the gap for the racial or the ethnic group that moved out. So it's kind of a part of our history. It's been a city of neighborhoods. However, it starts a dialogue, people having conversations, because what comes as a result of that segregation are communities that don't understand each other. And that's what the real problem is. And that's what leads to so many other issues, whether it's with law enforcement or whether it's just in general business practices. And also, you look at redlining too that occurred where black people weren't able to get home loans, and that is played out in some very very nasty, some very ugly ways in our society. But again, to get past that, you look at the things that bring people together. We were just talking about how Milwaukee's a food town that people don't know about. Food brings people together.
It's one of your favorite
music
restaurants
brings. See, if I say a favorite,
not favorite. Where's the place you like?
I ain't going there. Somebody gonna get mad at me.
All right, we ain't gonna go there then. That's cool. So, your childhood home isn't there anymore. Correct?
Yep, that's where I've spent first years of my life over there on 26 and Locust. That house was raised. I forget when, but we moved out of there in I think the 90s. And my dad still owned the home for a number of years. Then he ended up selling it.
So what was your experience in living on Locust?
Yeah, it was I remember Noel, my next door neighbor. He was like my first friend. I remember, and then we ended up going to high school together, which is weird. I remember first person I ever knew that went to jail, guy Dion, and it was I was young, but I still remember that experience. I remember the first time a car got stolen, the first time I had a mouse in the house. I remember all that stuff. And we were upstairs. That mouse put in some effort.
Do you think the city has changed a lot since you've since around those times? And if they have, how has the city changed to you?
So city's definitely changed. City has grown. City's definitely grown. There's a lot that's offered now that wasn't then, but the growth hasn't been evenly distributed. And like you said, like you mentioned earlier, you talked about not just the east side or downtown, because that's where a lot of growth is happening. A lot of neighborhoods are still struggling, or struggling even more in many instances. Even you look back 11 years ago, the recession, a lot of people still haven't even recovered from the recession. So the city is definitely challenged. I love it. I think that we have an opportunity to be great, but we're on the cusp. It can go one way. We can either fall off or we can grow. I'm committed to seeing us grow, but I'm committed to seeing us grow collectively.
Where do you want us to collectively grow into?
Yeah, I want us to be an example of what a post-industrial city could be. You look at manufacturing as it's left it's left Milwaukee as it has other areas in the Midwest. I want us to show how you can bounce back from that and become a city that people can be proud of, and we can become a state in turn that people will be proud of.
Cool. I guess just to wrap up the whole interview is when people sit down and watch this interview, overall, what is the one thing you want them to get from the interview? What impact do you want them to have?
I want people to know that like government is not some abstract. There are real people involved, and I think there should be more real people involved, more real people with actual personalities and lived experience. and I think that's been the problem, is that you have so many people with no actual connection to the people that they serve, and they end up not making the best decisions. And I think that the only way that government works effectively is when real people step up and get involved. That can mean running for office. That can mean, showing up to meetings. That can mean working on campaigns too, because a lot of campaigns, people don't win because they don't know how to talk about an issue. And if you're involved in a campaign, it's like, hey, look, you should probably be thinking about this, because these issues have continued to be ignored for a really long time. Whether it's young people, whether it's communities of color who don't always feel heard. And that happens because you get people running these campaigns, or you don't have anybody who is on the campaign who can sit and have that real conversation and tell them, what's going wrong. So I want people to step up. I want people to get involved, because as long as the most impacted people are not involved, the people who are making the impact more often than not negatively are going to continue to stay involved, and they're going to get everything they can out of government.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to come back when the weather breaks.
When the weather breaks?
Okay, yeah, we do an outside interview.
Oh, we can walk. I always want to do like a walk on like Oprah. And we could probably eat too, because I like eating.
My stomach is growling now. I hope the microphone didn't pick it up. I'm very hungry.
Well, all right, that's our time with Mandela Barnes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
First video interview ever
The
for
first
Carvd
video.
Stone. So in the end, everything will be Carvd Stone. All right.
That's right.
That's cool.
Look at that. I gave you a new tagline.
I know. No, that was already my tagline.
Oh, well, excuse me.
It's good. No, that was awesome. That was really cool. First time I ever did something like that.
And that's a cut.